Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. When it comes to food, our next guest believes it's time to get back to the basics. She not only bakes her own bread, she grinds the wheat into flour to make it. We welcome the woman who's been called the modern-day Martha Stewart, Gretchen Adler. Gretchen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi.
Tell me about how you started kind of living this lifestyle. I imagine you didn't just wake up one day and start making your own flour at home.
For sure, I did not. Let's see here. I felt like I was being drawn to this type of lifestyle after I started having children. And it was really when I was pregnant with my second baby. And I thought I was eating a healthy diet. I was primarily plant-based. And when I came to take my blood test during that pregnancy, my midwife told me that I was highly anemic and that I should start taking beef liver. So I did that. And within a few months, I took my blood again and my blood was great. I was no longer anemic. And I realized at that point, that like my prenatal vitamins weren't working. The diet that I thought was so healthy for me was not nourishing my body the way it should be. And at that point, I just, I started discovering other ways of eating and what I call the ancestral diet. And I just started researching more about that and getting my hands dirty in the kitchen. And well, here I am today.
Tell me about everything that you grow and source at home. You've got quite the arrangement worked out.
Yeah, it's very much garden to kitchen. I have my vegetable boxes that I have in the backyard. So, I have seasonal produce and fruits. I have my own backyard chickens where I am able to get my own pasture-raised eggs. And of course, then I have my kitchen where I am creating nourishing meals every single day.
What about kid-friendly food? I know you have these beautiful children that you're working hard to feed every day. Do you have great ideas or tips for other parents at home that say, gosh, I put these things together for my kids and they stick their nose up at them?
Yeah, I think it's really important to make food taste good. My husband's a foodie. He owns restaurants and his palate is very fine-tuned. If it wasn't for him, my food probably wouldn't taste very good. But so I'm constantly being pushed to make my foods taste really great. And for the children, of course, they're in school and they see other children eating these snack foods out of fun-looking packages. So for me, I love to create what I call dupes, healthy version of the dupe, or healthy dupes. And so, for example, at school, they're eating goldfish crackers. I make my own homemade goldfish crackers. They eat Cheez-Its at snack time. I send my kids with homemade Cheez-Its so that they don't feel left out. They have the same types of snacks, but that the ingredients are quality ingredients and what I want them to be.
Do you have advice for other people, parents, caregivers who are kind of wanting to get away from overly processed foods but aren't sure where to start? It can just seem kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. I think you have to make baby steps. For me, the number one biggest thing is not to bring these foods into the house, because when you have them in the home, and you don't feel like making something, you don't feel like, creating a meal, you will resort to the processed foods and the more convenient foods and the fast foods. So I think the first step is just really purging your fridge and your pantry of these junk foods, and then restocking your home with real ingredients, which is, vegetables, quality meats and proteins, chicken, beef, eggs, good quality raw cheese, and then really just making a meal. So my number one go-to meal is a whole roasted chicken. It sounds intense, but honestly, once you make it one time, you'll see it only takes a few minutes of prep time. It cooks in the oven for several hours without you having to worry about it. And then dinner's ready and you have a fabulous dinner that you really didn't have to do too much work on.
That's a great point. Once you get one of those go-to recipes really honed in, you can kind of almost do it in your sleep. Tell me more about the flour that you make. How did you come to that process?
Yeah, it's actually something I discovered several years ago out of necessity. I wanted to make a sourdough buckwheat bread. At the time, I was making gluten-free buckwheat bread, and I didn't have any buckwheat flour. All I had was these buckwheat groats, which is the whole buckwheat. And I was like, well, I really need to make bread, so let me just try and see what happens if I blend this up. And in seconds, I had fabulous buckwheat flour. So, for years I was making my own flour in a blender, whether it be with the buckwheat. I then moved on to using wheat. So then I would grind the wheat berry in the blender, moved on to my Vitamix. And then in recent times, I finally was able to invest in a grain mill. And that's really been a life-changing appliance for me because it just sits on the counter. I don't have to worry about a dirty dish or doing batches of flour. It just comes out in seconds, as you can see. And it's nutrient dense, it's freshly milled, it's got all the qualities that you would want it to be versus your store-bought flour, which is shelf stable and really has all of the nutrients that have been taken out of it so that it can be shelf stable. So you're looking at a high quality nutrient dense flour when you're able to mill it yourself.
That is pretty amazing, and it's such a staple ingredient that you use constantly, so it's so wonderful. You can just access it like that immediately. Are you somebody who will head to a farmer's market for maybe local ingredients that you don't have at the house?
Definitely. I love supporting local farmers and purchasing items that are in season. That's definitely what we should all be doing. So that's another great way to get started, is just to start at your farmer's market and to start interviewing your farmers and seeing how they grow their vegetables, how they raise their meat, their eggs. And if they do it in the way that you're happy with, that's a great place to start. And it's better than the grocery store because these days the groceries, they're sourcing food from all over the world, and it could take months until it gets to your kitchen. So the freshest, highest quality ingredients are definitely going to be found at your farmer's market.
Yeah, it's always nice to make that really nice one-on-one connection with the people who are actually making the food that comes to your table as well. Okay, the million-dollar question from the moms who follow you: how do you find the time to do all of this? It's incredible.
Yeah, I get that question all the time, and it's funny because I live a very fast-paced lifestyle like most everyone else. But once you figure out how to make things a part of your routine, just like brushing your teeth, it takes you a few seconds in the morning and at night, and it's done, and it's like second nature. The same thing with making foods from scratch is you make something, you make your whole chicken, boom, now you know how to make it. Keep making it over and over again and make it part of your routine. Same thing with like your sourdough bread. It seems very daunting before you make your first loaf of bread, but once you make it a few times, you realize, wow, this is like pretty easy. And it only took a few minutes of prep time here and a few more minutes here, and then it ferments overnight, so I don't have to worry about it. And then it bakes in the oven for an hour. So a lot of the time in between is just fermenting and baking, and it's just the prep time here and there that you have to do, a few minutes here and there. So once you figure out how to put that into your routine and then that makes sense for your lifestyle, you're rolling.
Hey, well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.